she's stressed about money, that means I'm failing as a provider. If she says that I didn't do enough chores around the house, that means she's calling me a misogynistic, expecting her to do everything. This kind of hopelessness comes from a pattern called learned helplessness. And it is when someone learns that no matter what I do, I don't get what I want, which is emotional connection.
There are some relationships where the only outcome for you is going to be detachment. And I know the feeling of desperately searching for a way to make a relationship work.
You know that feeling when you walk through your own front door and feel your chest tightening? Because you don't know what version of the conversation you're going to walk into tonight. When you've stopped offering suggestions because they'll just get picked apart. When you've learned it's easier to say nothing than to say the wrong thing again. What you're feeling isn't weakness. It isn't failure. And it isn't proof that something is wrong with you. It's what happens when you try to build connection in a culture that's been redesigned for competition. And nobody told you the rules changed. If you've ever felt relationships have gotten harder, like the simple act of loving someone has become an exhausting negotiation, you're not wrong. And you're definitely not alone. A 2025 research from Yale published in Behavioral and Brain Science found something that may surprise you. Men actually value romantic relationships more than women do, for greater emotional consequences when those relationships fall apart. Researchers found that men rely more heavily on their romantic partners for emotional support and intimacy than women, largely because men are less likely to cultivate emotional support, friendship outside of romance. Translation? When your relationship is struggling, you don't have 10 people to call. You just have one. And when that one person becomes your critic instead of your corner, everything falls apart. Here's what the culture won't tell you. You're not failing at relationships. You're navigating relationships in a system that stopped working decades ago. And nobody updated the manual.
I think that men need to toughen up. And I think if men were forced to be homeless, they would learn how to be better men. What made men manly in the past was having to build houses, and just made men be homeless for like a year. I think it would fix a lot of problems.
That would be
society.
so good, especially because we don't force men to do military anymore like they used to. They make them homeless for a year.
Make them just figure it out.
Let's talk about what actually happened, because this isn't about men versus women. This is about economic reshaping intimacy. In 1960, 97% of prime-age American men were in the workforce. Today, it's closer to 88%. That's 5.5 million men who exited the economy, not because they're lazy, but because the economy stopped needing them in the same way. A paper from the National Bureau of Economics Research found that real wages for men without college degree have actually declined over the past 50 years when adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, housing costs are up 40% since 2015. The average wedding costs now $30,000. So you've got men who were raised with the expectation that they'd provide in an economy that's made providing nearly impossible. And then we wonder why marriage rates are plummeting. Pew Research found that 1 in 4 Americans who reach age 40 have never been married. That's not a dating problem. That's a systemic failure dressed up as personal adequacy. Here's the truth. You can't build a traditional relationship on a non-traditional economy. And this is why love feels harder now. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the foundation everyone told you to stand on shifted. But the ground didn't just shift economically, it shifted culturally. And this is where things got personal. Women were told, be independent, don't need a man, build your own life. Men were told, step up, provide, lead, but also make room, be soft, don't be too much. Both messages came from reasonable places. Women needed economic security. Men needed emotional range. But what actually happened was a collision. Independence became identity. Partnership started feeling like weakness. And suddenly, 2 people who might love each other were stuck in a silent competition neither of them signed up for.
What happens when a wife makes more money than her husband? Does it mess up the marriage, or does it make the marriage better?
The American Psychological Association research on modern dating found something revealing. Couples today report greater equality in income decision-making than any previous generation. but lower satisfaction and emotional connection. We traded warmth for fairness. We gained independence and lost intimacy. And here's where it hits you directly. You were taught that your value comes from being useful, from providing, from solving problems. But now, your instinct to lead gets reframed as control. Your desire to protect gets dismissed as patronizing. Your attempt to fix something gets met with, "Oh, I didn't ask for your help," so you stop. Not because you don't care, but because caring started to cost too much. That silence you've been carrying, that's not empathy. That's a man who got tired of being corrected for trying. A man who stopped reaching because his hands kept getting slapped. A man who learned that the safest place in his own home is inside his head. You didn't go cold. You went into protection mode. And the worst part, most people looking at you think you just don't care anymore. There's actually research on this, and it confirms what you already know in your gut. Dr. John Gottman has spent 40 years studying what made relationships survive or collapse. His research can predict divorce with 93% accuracy. The number one predictor? It's not fighting. It's not money. It's not infidelity. It's contempt. Contempt is the eye roll when you speak. The sarcastic, "Okay, sure," when you suggest something. The tone that says, "I'm above you," without using those words. You know exactly what it sounds like. You've heard it. Gottman also identified something called the demand-withdrawal pattern. One partner pushes for engagement, the other retreats. And in heterosexual relationships, men who don't feel respected tend to withdraw, not because they don't care, but because withdrawal becomes the only safe response.
Let me tell you something that most men will never say out loud. When we start pulling away into relationships, it's not always because we're angry. It's usually because we've stopped feeling like we can win with you. Not just in arguments, but in you. We feel like everything we do is wrong or not enough or misunderstood, so we retreat. We work more, we scroll more, we stop being romantic, not because we don't want you, but because we don't want to feel rejected again. When a man starts pulling away, he's not just being quiet, he's self-protecting. And not because you're scary or intense, you might be, but because he's ashamed. He feels like disappointment, like nothing he does is right. So what does he do? He shuts down. He hides behind work. He stops initiating.
Research from Simply Psychology described it this way. When a man withdraws or shuts down, he is almost always engaging in a deep act of self-protection against specific powerful fears in the context of intimacy. Self-protection, not laziness, not emotional unavailability. Protection. You learn to go quiet because going quiet hurt less than being told, again, that you got it wrong. Men don't disengage because they stop loving. They disengage because they stop feeling safe. Let me be direct with you. You don't need a woman who worships you. You don't need someone who agrees with every single thing you say. You don't need perfection, but you do need respect. And that's not ego. That's not fragility. That's basic relationship science. Here's what respect actually looks like. It's being spoken to like a partner, not a problem. It's having your decision considered, even when she disagrees. It's knowing when you walk through the door, you're coming home, not entering a courtroom. And here's what I need you to hear. Needing respect doesn't make you controlling. Wanting peace doesn't make you avoidance. Having standards doesn't make you difficult. It makes you someone who knows what a relationship is supposed to feel like. The cultural message that men should be islands, stoic, self-sufficient, needing nothing, was always a lie. And believing that lie is what's leaving so many men stranded. Here's the other piece of this. The Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health crisis in 2023. The impact of chronic loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. While the media talks about male loneliness epidemic, the real issue isn't that men feel lonelier than women. The data shows it's about equal, around 16% for both. The real issue is where men go when things fall apart. Women are more likely to reach out to friends, families, multiple sources of support. Men are more likely to rely on their romantic partner as their only source of emotional support. That means when your relationship is working, you're covered. When it's not, you're alone completely. And you've been told your whole life that needing a corner makes you weak. So you don't build one. And then you wonder why you feel like you're carrying everything by yourself. You're not broken for feeling isolated. You're responding normally to a system that gave you nowhere to go.
Most men don't have the language for emotional pain. We weren't taught it. We weren't modeled it. So instead of saying, I feel rejected, we say nothing. Instead of, I'm ashamed, we scroll. Instead of, I feel like I'm failing, we withdraw. And here's where it gets tricky. Your instinct, if you love him, is to fix it. You ask him what's wrong. Try to connect. But when he's in that shutdown state, every effort to fix feels like pressure. And all that does from his perspective is it confirms, yep, I can't win. She's disappointed again. So if you're in this place, here's what works. Not coddling him, not walking on eggshells. Drop the emotional demand.
So where does this leave you? First, stop blaming yourself for struggling in a game with broken rules. The economic pressure are real. The culture confusion is real. The shifting expectation are real. This isn't personal failure. This is systemic adaptation. Second, get clear on what you really need, not what you've been told that you should want. If you need respect, name it. If you need partnership, not competition, name it. If you need a home that feels like peace instead of a performance review, that's not too much to ask. Third, build your corner outside of romance. The Yale research made this clear. Men who have emotional, supportive friendship handle relationship challenges better. You need people you can call, people who know you. A corner you can return to when life gets heavy. This isn't about replacing romance. It's about not putting impossible pressure on one person to be everything. And finally, understand the goal isn't independence or dependent. It's interdependence. Independence says, I don't need anyone. Dependence says, I can't survive without you. Interdependence says, I'm whole on my own, and I'm choosing to build something with you. That's where real partnership lives, not in competition, not in scorekeeping, but in two people who've decided that together is better than alone. The culture told you that if you're struggling, something is wrong with you. That if relationship feels hard, you must be doing it wrong. That if you need things, respect, support, partnership, you're asking for too much. That was never true. You're navigating one of the most confusing periods in the history of relationships. The economics shifted. The expectation shifted. The rules shifted. And you're trying to figure it out with a map that was drawn for a different world. So let me say this clearly. You're not weak for wanting peace in your own home. You're not needy for wanting a partner who's in your corner. You're not failing. You're adapting to a game that changed the rule mid-play. Build your corner. Know what you need. Stop apologizing for having standards. Remember, the goal was never to win some invisible competition. The goal was always connection. And you're still allowed to want that. It's been your girl, Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.